Well, they closed down the mill and they closed down the mine. They said you can't work but pay your taxes on time. Got 3 little babies gonna starve to death or freeze. We started making white lightning, it was Grandpa's recipe. Run, rebel, run to nowhere. Run, rebel, run to the Scott County jail.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Jailhouse Informant. I am your host, Miranda, and my co-host, Christy, here, and you're locked in for the next hour on the Jailhouse Informant podcast.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I am in love with our new intro. I just think that is so awesome. And again, thank you to Bethy Lewis and the Electric Pineapple for allowing us to use that music. And thank you for Miranda for putting it together. I love it. Every time I see it now, it's just like that's pretty legit.
It is. It's, again, since we're back here, it's good to be able to actually have a nice fitting intro with a lot of historical information, but also have our own custom song. So again, thank you, Bethy. If you guys did not go and follow her page, she did put a link on there where you can actually get a copy of the entire song. We do need to share that here on the Jailhouse Informant page, or rather on the Historic Scott County Jail page. That way you can go on there, support content creators, support musicians, and go and actually hear the whole song, because it tells the story of Sheriff Richard Ellis, who was murdered right outside the front door of our jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really good show tonight. I'm really excited about this. This is the start, and Sally says hello to everybody. So she's probably going to be marching around here in just a few minutes. But thank you everybody for joining us. This is going to start our historic jail series. So we're very excited about this. We've asked jails or historical societies that have jails in their repertoire to join us on the show and talk about their historic jails and the history of the jail, the county, and so on. So we're really excited about tonight's guest. He will lead off our jailhouse series.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about not just the history there, but also the history of the area. And then also kind of going in to check and see if some of these jails have some of the same paranormal history, or some paranormal history like we have at our jail. I know in going and researching, we've been able to see a lot of different people that we have common connections who follow the pages. So we hope that, if you don't follow these locations, that you'll go follow their Facebook pages, follow their pages that they have online, show some support, because these historical societies in different locations, a lot of them are volunteer efforts, and they're just as excited about getting their history information out there to people as we are. And, I know that Christy and I are always sitting there talking about when we find out new facts and new history about the area, we're always wanting to share it. So if you guys over in the chat room over here have any questions, please bring questions to the show, because we love interacting with y'all. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in there. We'll pull them up on the screen, and hopefully either us or our guest will be able to answer those tonight. Looks like we have Scott from Scotland on
Hey,
there.
Scott and Susan and Nancy and Janet and Ronnie, thank you all for being here tonight. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry. But like I said, it's going to be a great show. I cannot believe we're already on January 22nd. But we are working here at the jail to bring you some really cool things in February. So we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the show. But I'm really excited about tonight's guest.
Yeah. And so, of course, Christy is live at the jail tonight. I am down here in the Cleveland, Tennessee area. But you had some tours today, Christy?
We did, yeah, absolutely. We had some people from Nashville come in. We had a private tour for them. And even though we're closed during the day for the month of January, except for Saturdays, if you want to call and schedule a private tour of the jail, we will be happy to accommodate you with that. But we had a couple out of Nashville. They were fantastic, and just had a great time with them. Really enjoyed speaking with them, or right outside of Nashville, actually. Really enjoyed speaking with them and telling the history of the jail. But yeah, so we've got, like I said, we've got by appointment only. If you want to schedule a private day tour, a flashlight tour, an escape room, by all means, please do so, because we'll be happy to accommodate that.
And those daytime tours, they are guided tours.
Yes, yeah.
If it's on our day off, it is a guided tour. And we're kicking off next week several different paranormal investigations that will be taking place there, as well as several different guided ghost hunts, kicking off the end of January and the first part of February really strong. So we're excited about that. Get on there, get your dates booked, because some of the earlier dates this first quarter, they are starting to fill up.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have some very cool tours and specialized tours during the month of February. We will be theming our months for the next few months, so pay attention to that. And very excited about what's coming up here at the jail.
Absolutely. And to answer your question, Ronnie, the chances of Bedford Paranormal scheduling a private investigation this year hopefully is really good.
Hopefully it's 100%.
Yeah. Talk to Bedford, get them down here, because we'd love to have you guys come in and do an investigation of the jail there. So we do have dates open. We haven't opened from September to December yet, but we're intending to open that in March. So, but we want to go ahead and get on tonight's guest. Like I said, we will be covering a little more news here at the end of the show. But again, kicking off our first, let me pull up that intro here, kicking off our very first guest here in our Jailhouse History and Haunts series. And tonight's guest actually comes to us from out of North Georgia, Pickens, Cherokee County, Georgia. I'm just going to kind of quickly go into the bio, but we're going to let tonight's guest really cover it, because he's a very interesting guy. But Bill, he is a 6th-generation resident of Pickens in Cherokee County, Georgia, a history enthusiast, and he serves as president of the Pickens Historical Society. He gives lectures on the history of Georgia's marble industry, and he draws his inspiration and wisdom from his childhood experiences of touring the quarries with his grandparents and hearing stories told by family members who worked in the marble industry. So we're going to be discussing his book, discussing that history, as well as the old jail in Jasper. So we're going to go ahead and bring on Mr. Bill Cagle.
Hello.
Hey, Bill.
How are y'all doing this evening?
We are fantastic, and we are so excited to have you tonight. Just a wealth of knowledge about your county, and we've been reading up a little bit on it, but we are very excited to speak to you tonight.
Well, thank you. I've been excited ever since the invitation came to me to join y'all for this, and I love that intro. That intro was just over the top.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate
it because it down here in the South, that you could just pick a county, and it'd be pretty appropriate, especially here in Appalachia area. With the moonshining and the old jails and law enforcement and so forth. So it's very appropriate. I love that, and the music was just
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. We're extremely proud of it. And that's one of the things that we found really interesting about some of these other old jails, especially here in the South and in Appalachia, is that there are a lot of common stories as far as the type of inmates that they had in the early years, to the jailers and stuff having to live there in the jail. So we're always interested to hear their stories, or hear your stories.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, we reached out to you because of your association with the jail and the Pickens County Historical Society. But then to delve into your background with, going into the marble industry. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm from Florida. I'm a 5th-generation Floridian, but I never really knew that Georgia had such a rich history in the marble industry.
It's the marble capital of, course, I'm biased, but it's the finest marble in the world. It's very unique because of the crystalline structure. It's about 97-98% pure calcium carbonate.
Wow.
And it's unique in that it's very decorative and very beautiful. It's got some unique characteristics about it, but it's also what makes it more unique is that it's a very good structural component. If you look at the most famous project ever used with Georgia marble is obviously the Lincoln Memorial, and the columns that support the dome of the U.S. Capitol. That's Georgia marble, which was started in 1958. They wanted to finish up that project before Kennedy's inauguration in 1961. But it's all over Washington D.C. 60% of the monuments and buildings in D.C. contain Georgia marble. Arlington National Cemetery, about 94% of the monuments contain Georgia marble or are made out of Georgia marble.
Wow.
So it's like I say, it's a very unique product.
So was this one of the industries that, after the Civil War kind of helped rebuild Georgia, or, were they finding marble before and then just really kind of catapulted in that direction?
Well, it's funny. Both. It started in, Georgia is a kind of a unique state in that it was the only state that I'm aware of that had a land lottery. And a lot of that was due to the gold rush of 1829 in North Georgia, which was the first major gold rush in the United States, and the Federal Road, which what is now Pickens County was the heart of the Cherokee Nation. Okay. And gold was found in 1829, which led to, the Trail of Tears, the Indian Removal Act, and so forth. And then the Federal Road, well, they had, I think it was 7 or 8 land lotteries throughout the 1830s. And one of the lucky draws was by an Irishman who immigrated about 20 years prior from Ireland. His name was Henry Fitzsimmons. Okay. He was a stonemason, and he had done some projects here in Georgia. He built in Lawrenceville, Georgia, Gwinnett County, he built that jail. And he won a land lottery, and he was traveling the Federal Road here in what is now Pickens County to see his new winnings, his land lot. And anyhow, what the Cherokees did back then, about every 20 to 30 miles, they built inns and taverns. And these inns and taverns were for travelers to spend the night, eat, water their horses, feed their horses, and so forth. And also, as your introduction there showed, moonshine was very prevalent here in Appalachia. And being the good Irishman that he was, and I can say this, I got a little Irish blood in me, he became a little bit too rowdy and rambunctious because he consumed a little bit too much white lightning at one of the inns, and they kicked him off the stagecoach in what was then the Long Swamp Valley, which is now here in Pickens County. And he literally and figuratively stumbled across an outcropping of marble and realized, because he was a stonemason, he realized this was a high grade quality marble. Wow. The following year, he moved his family here and began he commercially discovered the marble industry. Wow. It floundered along through the next several decades. Got to remember, marble is very heavy. Georgia marble in particular, it's about 168 pounds per cubic foot density. So you're limited as to how far you could travel, or how far market you could reach. Right. Until 1883, 1883, when the railroad came to Pickens County. Okay. And that really increased the reach the marble industry had in sending out monuments, headstones, and what have you, and developed into commercial structures, buildings, and so forth. So the railroad really helped expand the market reach of the marble industry.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, that is, like I said, I had no idea about the how prolific marble was in Georgia. So to know that this is there is fascinating.
And it's still an active industry today. There's a lot of it still goes into the headstones, the Georgia Marble, the Tate Monument Division, which is owned by Polycor now. They have a contract with the Veterans Administration, and they supply headstones to the VA.
Oh, wow.
But most of the marble now it goes into calcium carbonate. It's used into everything from construction materials such as drywall, paint, caulks, ceiling tile, carpet backing, toothpaste, the white powder that's in your chewing gum wrapper and all that. A lot of times that's calcium carbonate, Georgia marble. It's in almost everything. So we come in contact with it every day.
Okay. And so what we're showing here is the cover to the book that you wrote. And what really started you on this research journey?
Well, about 15, 16 years ago, our fall festival, first weekend in October, is the Georgia Marble Festival. And the only time the quarries are open to the public is that weekend. And I became a tour guide. I volunteered to be a tour guide. And anyhow, long story short, the script they had us was not really all that accurate. It's kind of repetitive and it's kind of boring. And so, being a history enthusiast that I am, and knowing a lot of the facts that I do or did about the North Georgia area, I just made my own script about the federal road and how it led to the development and tied it into how it led to the discovery of the marble industry. The Cherokee Nation, because what is now Pickens County was essentially the heart of the Cherokee Nation, at least in Georgia, and how the marble industry was discovered and up through the Colonel Sam Tate era up through today. And after the tour, people would say, "Well, where can you buy a book on all this? This is really interesting." I said, "Well, there's not really a book you can buy. There's a lot of different books that are no longer in publication that you might be able to get tidbits here and there, but there's not really a book." Well, people say, "Well, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book." So I heard that for about 5 or 6 years. And so, because I'm the furthest thing from an author, that if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be a published author, I would have laughed you. I mean, I'd say you need to have your head examined. But anyhow, so I began gathering up my facts and sources and information. And the script I used for the marble tours was essentially the outline that I used in writing the book. And when I became president of the Historical Society, I found a lot of old pictures that were just stored in the old jail that were just in boxes that mice had gotten into, and they were getting destroyed. And so my daughter and I, we brought all those pictures home, and I started scanning a lot of them for my book. And I contacted Kennesaw State University, which is a college that's only about 45 minutes from Pickens County, and their archive, museum, and rare books department. And anyhow, long story short, they were a big help in helping us research a lot of the facts about the jail and what have you. And so they have, and I wanted those really cool photos to be preserved and digitized and archived, because we didn't really have a place to keep them. And so they have them, and they have secured them. They're digitizing them and so forth. So that's kind of how I became a published author in August of 2021.
Wow,
Very
fantastic.
cool. Yeah, so guys, he literally wrote the book On the Road to Georgia Marble, and we've got the link here. Got it on the screen, but if you go back either into the show notes or into the comments here, that takes you to where you can purchase the book there on Amazon. So definitely go and check that out, guys.
Nice. It seems like the luck of the Irish is just kind of running rampant here.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Well,
I like
thanks for that Henry Fitzsimmons. He's the one that is given credit for commercially discovering the industry.
That's great. So you mentioned the Historical Society. So you're now the president of that. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and your role there and kind of what the Historical Society does for Pickens County?
Absolutely. Our main focus, I became president in can't remember if it was 2017 or 18, but anyhow, our main focus is the old Pickens County Jail. That's the old courthouse right there that was burnt down in 1947. And there's well, I'm not going to get into it right now, but there's also a pretty good story on how, and more than how that courthouse burnt down.
It's a beautiful courthouse.
That's the Conahany Lodge right there. That was Colonel Sam Tate who put Georgia Marble on the map. But anyhow, our main focus is to restore and maintain the old Pickens County Jail. And we when I got involved with that several years ago, the Historical Society had become pretty much dormant. Not a lot of activity going on. Membership was aging, and a lot of people either passed away or moved away. And they really hadn't done a lot. So anyhow, I got several people that I knew that had similar passion about the county as I did or do, and got them on the board of directors. And anyhow, so we started remodeling, cleaning up the old jail there. That's a picture of it right there.
Gorgeous.
Built in 1906, same year as yours, I believe it was. And obviously the veneer outside is Georgia Marble. And but the inside had become just a dumping ground for people that wanted to donate just whatever. And there was a lot of really cool stuff in there. And we've gave a lot up to Kennesaw State that they're taken care of, and we've let the city and the county have some of it that they're using displayed, and then we've boxed some of it up. And there's Chris Williams. I know Chris. He's been to the jail a couple of times doing the investigation. But anyhow, we cleaned out the jail, and the idea was to make it back into a residence, because like you said earlier, the jail, the residence, or the downstairs was the residence for back in the early days, the sheriff or whomever the jailer was and their families. And the upstairs was the cell block where the men and women cell block are. And so we've now finished renovating it, cleaning it up, fixing it up, and turned it into a residence downstairs. And we got rid of a lot of the clutter that was upstairs and turned it, and it looks today like it did when this was the county jail up until August of 1982. So it really hasn't been that long ago that this was the county jail.
Okay.
And so that's our main job or function, is to take care of the jail. And also last year we started having quarterly county programs, presentations on different historical facts that surrounds the county and so forth.
So I'm sorry, go ahead, Miranda.
I was just going to ask, what was the capacity of that jail? How many did it hold? Do you know of?
Well, okay. In the ladies' cell block, there are 2 cell blocks, cages, and each block or each cage has 4 bunks in it. So it could hold 8 women, and the men's cell block was larger, and there were 8. Let's see. Yeah, 8. I think, no, I'm sorry. 4. Yeah, 8 bunks there. They had one out in the front of it. 9, but so they could sleep 8 or 9 in beds. But got to remember now, back in the early 1900s and even throughout most of the time when the jail was in use, prisoners really didn't have that many rights, so to speak. And my uncle, now I asked a former sheriff who retired in 2008. He was the last sheriff that operated that jail there when it was in use up until August of 82. How many he remembered being there at one time. He said, well, a court day back in the late 70s, he remembered 37 people being there.
Wow.
As a holding. They weren't there overnight. They were there as a holding cell because they had court appearances and all that.
Okay.
And my uncle was a deputy back in the mid 70s for a couple of years. And back then, Pickens County was a dry county up until around the early 80s. and you couldn't even buy beer or wine, much less liquor or legal liquor. You could buy plenty of moonshine, but you
Right.
couldn't buy anything. You couldn't buy any legal spirits. But in on the 4th of July, Pickens County, we always had a huge 4th of July celebration. People would come from all over North Georgia, North Alabama, Tennessee, Western North Carolina, and it was a huge celebration. And he said he remembers 27 being held up there overnight due to public drunkenness. And I
Wow.
said,
Wow.
I said, I'm sure that was a lot of fun dragging 27 drunks up those steep stairs to get them upstairs. He said, oh gosh, yeah. He said, because the stairs going up the steps there are very steep, very narrow. And I said, I'm sure that was real pleasant on a July summer night and evening, having 27 drunks up there, and some of them getting sick. And I'm sure I said, I just can't imagine how gross that was. He said, you don't even want to know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Actually, here's a picture of the stairs. I was kind of looking for some different pictures.
That's
Oh,
it.
whoa.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
There you go. So after it closed in the 80s, did it just sit vacant, or was it repurposed for something else?
It sat vacant for probably a year or two.
Okay.
And then it was turned over. The county technically still owns it.
Mhm.
And the Historical Society, back then, Marble Valley Historical Society, now today, Pickens Historical Society is the custodian. We're, responsible for opening it up and keeping it functional and tours and what have you. So.
Okay. So this one was built in 1906, but
Mhm.
if I was reading correctly on the website, this is like the 3rd or 4th iteration of this jail, correct?
This is the 3rd Pickens County jail,
Okay.
where when you had that picture of the old courthouse,
Mhm.
the
Okay.
existing courthouse was built at that same site, essentially just right across the street from the old jail there.
Okay.
The first 2 jails were behind the old courthouse. One was a wooden structure, kind of like what you see on the far left there.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's the first one. And the second one there is it was a wooden and rock jail around
Okay.
1860.
Okay.
Wow.
And in the late 1890s, the courts said that there's a lot of health issues there. There's a lot of with moisture, mold, and what have you in the rock jail there. And the courts said, hey, Pickens County, y'all got to do better than this, build a jail. So, the grand jury said the same thing. And they built this jail in 1906.
Mhm.
And at that time, it was a state-of-the-art facility.
Mhm.
The only wood that was used in construction is around the door frames and window frames.
Wow.
It's solid masonry construction. So it was essentially fireproof. It had poured concrete floors and poured concrete ceiling downstairs and the floor upstairs. And so it was
Wow.
pretty much fire resistant, fireproof, considering, the day back in 1906.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it's a beautiful
the
building.
sheriff,
Yeah.
oh, it is. It's small. It's 900 square feet downstairs and 900 square feet upstairs.
Okay.
And the women's cell block, there's just a wall, a brick wall that separated the women and the men's cell block. Now, most of the time, there wasn't many women there. Usually it was just 1 or 2. And if they had overcrowding of men, depending on, I guess, what type of crimes they had committed, they would use the ladies' cell block to house the men as well. Any overflow.
Okay. So, and the jailer lived there until it closed in the 1980s?
Yeah, there was
wow.
in latter
Wow.
days before it was the jailer lived downstairs. It would be a deputy or what have you, and they had a bedroom, and then there was an office and a kind of a lounge and office and a kitchen there as well, where the sheriff's wife would fix the meals for the inmates. Now, our former sheriff that I mentioned earlier, his name, I don't think he would mind if I use his name, was Billy Wofford.
Mhm.
He became chief deputy in 1971.
Mhm.
And he and his wife, Donna, lived downstairs with their 18-month-old daughter at the time. They lived
Yeah.
there for about, that's Billy and Donna
There it is.
right there. They lived there for about 18 months, and Billy was chief deputy. Donna, she ran the office and cooked all the meals for the inmates. And, and of course, back then, let's say there was Billy, the chief deputy. The sheriff at that time was Harley Cantrell. They had a full-time deputy and a part-time deputy, and that was pretty much it. And then, of course, Donna, she answered the phone and the radio and cooked the meals for the inmates.
How large is that community?
Right now, Pickens County is about 34,000, and a lot of that growth
Okay.
has happened in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, is this building on the National Register of Historic Places?
It is. It is. It is.
Yeah. And it has a similar story to ours. You know, kind of the same thing. The jailer were moved off residence here in the 60s, but almost the same stories. You know, we had the jailer's wife who was the cook and really kind of maintained the jail in that respect. But it is fascinating to hear the similar stories of these historic jails. So
Really
now you've
is.
got you've got the historical society in there. So what are y'all? You know, what does your events look like? How are you keeping the enthusiasm alive for this jail?
Well, the last couple of years, one of the big problems we've had is getting volunteers to volunteer to open the jail. We've gotten one lady that has been a godsend since the fall. She opens it up usually one or two Saturdays or Sundays a month for 3 or 4 hours. Because some of us board members, we still work full time, and that we also got burned out. We put, for the better part of the last 4 years, every weekend, a lot of times in the evenings, we'd go over there and do things, trying to get it, shaped up to open up for whatever we were planning on doing. And at some point in time, you just got to step back and hopefully let somebody else hopefully pick the ball up and run with it. And fortunately, we've got one volunteer that's done that, and we've got a couple more that are interested. The goal is, I would love to be able to open it up on, for 2 or 3 hours every maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now we do for special events. If there's something special going on in town, we make sure we open it up. We've got several. We had for instance, last year we had Art Walk, which we got a lot of local artists that
that's cool.
would show their artwork in various businesses throughout on Main Street, and we'd have 2 or 3 in the jail, and that would bring in a lot of visitors and people that never been in the jail. And then Labor Day weekend, we have the Sheriff's Jeep Fest that come from all over the United States, and they have Jeep trails and obstacle courses and all that. And that'll bring in, I think last year there was close to 1,800 or 2,000 Jeeps, and they have on Friday night they have a big function on Main Street called Show and Shine, and a concert. We always open the jail there, and we'll have several hundred people come through then. And then we have various other events in town: 4th of July, the Marble Festival weekend, Christmas parade. We have different things going on in the spring as well that that bring that we open up for special occasions too. So.
Okay.
Great.
We're going to jump back just a minute. Because
we actually have a question from Scott from Scotland.
Yes,
he says, what's a land lottery? He says, we don't have them over here.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia was the only state in the Union back in the 1800s, in the 1830s. Because, like my book is entitled The Road to Georgia Marble, what that name means is the Federal Road, which was the nation's first, I guess you could say, superhighway that the nation ever had, that linked Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, all the way down through North Georgia to Augusta, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, with spurs going all the way down to St. Augustine, Florida. And as we mentioned earlier, when gold was discovered in 1829 in North Georgia, that brought in over 10,000 prospectors and a lot of growth into North Georgia. And you could have another discussion on what happened to the Cherokees and what have you, but fast forward up to the 1830s, they had the Indian Removal Act, and because gold was discovered in 1829, the state of Georgia, the federal government, and what have you, moved the Cherokees west, and the state of Georgia started having a land lottery for different parcels of land. You registered for the lottery, and you either won a land lot, a gold lot, or which were called fortunate draws, or an unfortunate draw. And so your name or your number would be put into this big wheel, and they would turn it just kind of like any other ticket drawing or whatever. And they would pick a ticket, and I don't know if I think it would have a number on it, or maybe it was your registration. I can't remember exactly how it was deemed, but anyhow, you either won a gold lot or which was like a 40-acre tract, or 140 or 160 acre tract, which was a non-gold lot, which there wasn't any gold presumably in and around that area or that property. And then if you were unfortunate, you had an unfortunate draw. So that happened, I think, 7 times in Georgia in the 1830s. So that's what the land lottery was.
Wow. So you're fortunate enough to get a gold draw, or
Right.
you're unfortunate enough, but you got more land.
Right.
Wow.
And the interesting thing, one of a good friend of mine who's on the board with me, his family has the property that his family won in the lottery of the 1830s. So it's been almost 200 years that it's been in his family.
Wow.
Wow.
And actually, it's only about a quarter mile from where I live.
That's fantastic. Now, was anybody allowed to join the lotteries, or just people that lived in Georgia or
There
from
were
Georgia?
qualifications. If you were obviously if you were a Georgia resident and a veteran of the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, whatever, you could put your name in. If you're a widow, if you were a deceased veteran, your widow had the right to qualify for the lottery as well. And then, the third was, kids and all that. And then I guess just anyone could, because where Georgia Marble is now in Tate, Georgia, the one that originally won that land lot was a gentleman by the name of William Green from Savannah, Georgia. And then it passed, his brother bought it, and then his brother sold it to Samuel Tate, which was the first Tate family member to be that lived here in what was then called Harnageville, what is now Tate, Georgia. He was the first Tate family member to live here, and then also to be involved in the marble industry. He leased out part of his property to some guys from Alabama, 3 men from Alabama, that opened up a small finishing mill and quarry there, and he received a royalty. So and then his grandson was the one that really put Georgia Marble on the map in 1905.
Okay.
Wow.
And thank you for your question, Scott.
Yes, that was good.
Great question. So like I said, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to just put them over here in the comments, and we'd be happy to get to them. So just to kind of jump back, we were talking about the jail and some of the different events and stuff that you guys have there. I see and looking through the pictures, and then also Chris Williams's comment, you had said that he had investigated there. He's talking about some of the activity that they had. Does any of your volunteers or people who are on site there, do they ever say that they have any strange occurrences or anything interesting happen at the jail?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've heard several people say they've been in the jail and heard footsteps upstairs, and there was nobody there but other than them. Chris, he's been there twice, and I believe he said there on the last time, said that something was thrown at them upstairs in the cell blocks. We have the Southern Ghost Girls for the last 4 years, I believe. About every quarter, they're out of Huntsville, Alabama. They come and do paranormal investigation. They sell tickets to it, and they find activity all the time. I mean, and it seems like every visit, that's them there. Every weekend they have more and more activity. Last spring, I believe it was, one of the pictures you showed earlier, there's no cabin next door to the jail. That's the Kirby Quinton cabin. It's about 200 years old. It was built back in the 1820s by Charles Solly Dunby, who was a Cherokee. And anyhow, they found that's it there. They found activity, spirits saying they're Cherokees. One of them was General James Longstreet.
Oh,
Really?
Said they conjured it. Yep. Because
wow.
even though I don't know, I'm sure he came to Jasper, Pickens County some, but after the Civil War, he was the postmaster in Gainesville, Georgia, which is only about 45 miles due
fascinating.
due east of us. So I'm sure he came through there in his days, and supposedly, like I said, they conjured up his spirit, and there's been all kinds of activity, and various other paranormal groups have found all kinds of activity there.
Now, is that cabin on the property there at the jail? Because I was thinking I saw a
Yes.
picture. See if I can find it here. I was thinking I saw a picture of it behind the jail.
It's right next to the jail.
Next to it. Okay.
Yeah, right. Hit that one right there on the far right where it says open today. I think you can see it maybe.
That's the one I was seeing.
There it is.
Yeah, that's it.
So investigators, when they go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, just that picture's kind of taken at an angle. That's probably around 7 o'clock. If you're looking at a watch, I'd be around 7 o'clock, looking kind of to your right there. So yeah, that's the cabin there.
I think it's fascinating. So when paranormal investigators investigate, they can investigate both of those structures?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Fantastic. And obviously this is kind of a fundraiser for y'all. What do you charge for paranormal investigations?
Well, the Ghost Girls, they charge, they sell tickets depending on what they're doing. They do various types of events, and they give us 20% of their revenue, and which has been our biggest source of income, especially since COVID. And we've invested that money back into the structure there. If you can see, I don't know if you can see right there in that picture there, the lights there, the purple lights there, those lights, we can change the color of those lights depending on what kind of, what's going on, what time of year it is, if it's Christmas or more mood. And so those lights, that came from the Ghost Girls money that they gave back to us. I don't know if you can see there on the front porch, there's some metal railing there. We put that railing up last year or maybe a year and a half ago. We've done some wiring inside with additional lights. We've done some repairs on the structure itself, because of the money they've given us. So yes, any money that we take in from paranormal investigations, and Chris's group, they've have given money as well. And when we charge $5 admission, for inlet, so I think under 10 it's free, but all that money goes back into the jail to help maintain and preserve that jail. I mean, we've spent probably in the last three and a half years over $40,000 in maintaining the jail. So yeah,
I
you know,
believe
it
it.
doesn't take much at all to spend $40,000 today.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Now, when y'all started the paranormal investigations, what was the reception from the community? Have they been receptive to this? Have they embraced it at all, or did you get some pushback?
No, actually, it was in the very beginning. We didn't really get any positive. I mean, no positive or negative feedback at all. The funny thing is that most of the visitors that come for the when the Southern Ghost Girls come and they sell their tickets, most of the visitors come from out of the area. Now, in the last year, we have noticed that more and more local people are starting to show. They either live in Pickens County or one of the surrounding counties like Cherokee County or Dawson County or what have you. But for the first 2.5 years, we had no local people. Everybody was coming from 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6 hours away. And they would leave it. They'd get there probably around 7 o'clock in the evening, go to about 12 o'clock, and they would leave. But they every time the Southern Ghost Girls have been there, even with inclement weather, regardless how cold it is, if we have rain or whatever, they sell out every single time.
Fantastic.
And they're unique in that sense that they dress in period attire and come
Yes.
in, which I'm sure probably brings out a lot of different activity.
Yes, I'm sure it does. And they do something. They try to bring in something new each time they come, or maybe every other time they come. But they've done a great job, and I don't even know how many people they've had since they started come through there. I'd say, and I'm not exaggerating, in the last 4 years, I'd say they've probably brought close to 1,000 visitors through that jail.
Wow.
Fantastic.
And there's not been a single disappointed patron yet. Nobody's complained, wanted their money back, or anything. Nobody's been disappointed.
And that's
sorry.
fantastic. Miranda and I, for the past obviously year, we've had this jail, but even before that, we've really found that link between paranormal tourism and the historic preservation piece of this, and that's why we're so fascinated to talk to you and the other guests that we'll have in this series, because there is, it's not just the building that's benefiting; it is the outskirts of the community as well. You've got the hotels, the restaurants, even the gas stations are benefiting from all of that.
Absolutely.
And that's again that's the draw, I think, of this paranormal tourism aspect of this, is it's just not the building. There's so many other people in the community that benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people, people can roll their eyes about, because we'll see it from time to time when we share in the local history groups about the paranormal and stuff. People will roll their eyes, and it might not be something for them, or they'll kind of laugh about it. But when you really get in and look at it, it really has boosted a huge interest in the history, just from a different level. And I think it's something that if you really step back and look at it, as Christy said, you can really see where it's beneficial to these locations. And that's one of the things that really helps these locations be able to keep their lights on. And in your case, since, the majority of people are volunteers that have other jobs, it keeps the doors open so that we can go and enjoy these, just enjoy these day tours and stuff.
Absolutely. And it's, and like I said, it'd be one thing if we're not getting any public funds or anything like that. Now, now a couple of years ago, you showed some pictures of some storyboards and what have you. That's inside the jail. Now that was part of what Kennesaw State University helped us with, their museum and rare books archives department. And I will say this, for our city and county, they did the city donated $7,500 and the county donated $7,500 to help pay for that. Cause that was a pretty expensive project. That was about if I remember correctly, somewhere around $25,000 and then the other $10,000 we paid. And of course, we had done a lot of things since then or before then. But again, we do what we do to give back, invest back into the community, like you said, so that this jail can remain open. And we're trying to improve it to make it more comfortable. We put in air conditioning and heating system in, because there was used to the jail was closed in the wintertime because there was no heat in it. And it was winterized. The water was drained out of the commode and the sink in the bathroom and all that. But now, because of the funds that the Historical Society did have and money that we've raised since then, like I said, we've put in, including the storyboards, probably about $45,000+ into the jail, and to make it a more attractive, better experience for our patrons. And like I said, to maintain an old historic structure and building, it costs a lot of money, because nothing's cheap anymore. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah.
So.
And, Miranda and I, we started as paranormal investigators, and then we became business partners and opened this jail. And we did that in late 2021. And neither of us are jail owners or museum owners. We've never done this before. We're paranormal investigators who wanted to save this building. And to your point, it's incredible how much the costs add up for just simple things, to your point, like storyboards, display cases. And it's interesting, because a lot of people are like, why do you charge to go into a building that is, like it is? And that's the reason. Picture frames, and just picture frames, running the water, running the heat. And to your point, a lot of people don't understand that.
That's right. I had, there was on our Facebook page the other day, I made a post that I said, hey, one of our volunteers is going to open up this weekend from, I forgot what the hours were, so come on out for a $5 tour. And what else can you do for $5? I mean, I mean, you can't even buy a cup of coffee for $5 anymore. And so, somebody said, well, what can be done in Jasper for free? I mean, y'all are charging $5. Tell me something that can be done in Jasper that's for free. I said, well, that I'm not sure of, but I said, now let me challenge you. I said, if you can give me an idea on how we can generate funds to help maintain this historic structure, then we might be able to open it up for free. But I said, I'm open to suggestions and volunteers. I said, we need help. And of course, got no comment. So.
Of course not. Of course not. And that's why I'm really excited about this series. And I'm telling you, you are setting the bar for all of our next guests, because this conversation is fascinating. But that's kind of why we're excited about this, because you sharing your stories about what you're doing, like with the art walk and the Jeep event there. We're hoping that is going to open the door for other jails and historic sites to do the same thing. For us, we actually opened an escape room in one of our cells upstairs, and we were talking to a gentleman. A gentleman will be a guest in the next couple of weeks, and he was fascinated by that. So to be able to share these ideas, that's why we're really excited about doing this and bringing this exposure to these different places that we think should be preserved.
Yeah, and just seeing how they have a new life to them, with that. I mean, because and that's what's so fascinating in looking at our list of people who are coming in. Some are doing what we're doing and you're doing, with it being a museum, and others, they have their Chamber of Commerce in there. They have their historical archives in there. And, you might not necessarily be able to go in unless you're looking for a specific purpose. And then there are others, but the commonality is that a lot of these locations have opened for the paranormal, or opened up for the dark tourism and such. And so it's just fascinating to see these locations get a second chance and a new life with this preservation.
Absolutely. I agree. And it was kind of an accident that how the Ghost Girls, they found us. They sent an email to our general email address, and thought it was Pickens County, South Carolina. as opposed to Pickens County, Georgia. And so one of the other board members that answered the email, I think they called each other up, or one called the other, and they were started talking. Said, "No, this is Pickens County, Georgia. This old jail's Pickens County, Georgia, not South Carolina." And said, "Well, we'd be interested in doing a paranormal investigation. You all ever done that before?" So yeah, there's been in the past. There's been several other paranormal groups come in and do an investigation and found activity. So they decided to do it, and the rest has been history. I mean, they come in about at least once a quarter, sometimes twice a quarter, depending on what's on their schedule and what have you. And they're going to be here in February, early February, in about 2 weeks, I believe, and then again in March.
Okay.
They usually come in do a Friday night and a Saturday night investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so as far as if a private team wanted to do an investigation, or if somebody wanted to host an event there, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you to do this?
Just the best way is to go through our Facebook page. We got 2 Facebook pages. One is the old jail in Jasper, and the other one is the Pickens Historical Society. Contact us through there. That's probably the easiest and quickest way. Usually myself or 1 or 2 other members will respond within less than a day's time. If you're interested in doing an investigation, Chris, that chimed in, commented earlier, he went through our Facebook page, and then there's been probably 2 years ago. Well, no, in the last 2 years, there's been 2 other paranormal groups that contact us, and they went through our Facebook page. They did private investigations.
And the link we have up there on the screen, that is the one to the old jail in Jasper. And then I'm plugging in the link here. This one is to the Pickens Historical Society. So anyone, you can go on there. We do have these links in the show notes, but then we also have them in the comments. So if you go back and you're watching this video through the comments, you can actually do the live links to those. So that'll be. And
we also have a
access.
website. We also have a website, Pickens Historical.org, I believe it is, or I think it's a fairly new website. We got another volunteer that's maintaining it for us, but you can go that way as well.
And it's actually that's some of the stuff I was pulling up here while we were talking. It's a wonderful website, and that's something that, and I'm putting the link here now. That's something that we don't get to see as much of in some of these historical societies, because these are volunteer based, and with everything, I think with everything getting expensive, time is one of those things that's become such a precious commodity that people don't really have a lot of. And so I just got to say, you all have a very beautiful website on there. It's very informative and great to look at.
I'll tell Jan Murphy, who runs that for us. I'll tell her that, and I'm sure that will thrill her to no means. So, or no end.
Yeah, it's very informative. I mean, we were reading through it this afternoon, and the pictures, the information on there is just, it's a wealth of knowledge. So well done.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Couldn't do this without our volunteers.
How many do you have on?
Well, it depends. Right now, we've got about 6 or 8 active board members, and we got maybe 3 or 4 volunteers that are doing something on a somewhat regular basis. I'd like to have at least 4 or 5 more volunteers if we could, but I'm thankful for the ones we have.
Gotcha.
Okay, and we got another question right here. Janet Alms says, "What is the closest airport to Pickens?"
Major airport, unfortunately. Well, we have a municipal airport here for small planes and what have you, but as far as a major airport, unfortunately, it would be Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Atlanta.
It'd be Atlanta. However, Janet, you could come to Chattanooga, and
that's right.
We can fly down. Janet is one of our good friends, and she's been a fan for a long time. So
Chattanooga is only an hour and a half from there, and Chattanooga Airport is
for the airport,
nice.
The airport's probably about an hour and a half. It's not
so
much
Janet,
further
you make
than
plans.
The Atlanta Airport.
So it's a lot less hassle. So by the time you land, you could be halfway to Pickens from Chattanooga by the time you get your luggage in Atlanta. So
Absolutely.
keep that in mind, Janet.
Absolutely. Just to get off
I think
the plane a lot of times in Atlanta, you'd be halfway from Chattanooga to Jasper.
Right?
Exactly. And I think Christy, you and I need to plan a trip down there
we are.
to Pickens.
Oh, absolutely. Sooner
Please
rather
do.
than later.
And I was thinking the same thing. I'm gonna have to make a trip up to visit you one week.
Well, Bill, you are
love it.
always welcome. You are always
I
welcome. We
appreciate
would
that.
love to
really
get
do.
you up here, show you around. And you know, this again, this series for us is a way to network, get some information out, but also to show other locations what other people are doing and how we can really kind of delve into that and work together to really preserve these buildings, because that's really what
Right.
it's all about. So
That's
don't
right.
be surprised if we're picking your brain for a couple of things. And if you ever need any suggestions, we are definitely here for you.
You contact me anytime. I'll be more than happy to help you out any way I can.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We're anybody who wants the book, I know I'm buying it here in just a few minutes.
Oh, well, thank you.
Anybody who wants his book, please go and get that, because just being on this podcast, I have learned more about Georgia than I've known before. So,
well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Talk to the guy who literally wrote the book on it.
Yes.
One interesting fact I'll give you about the book. All right. So I'd always heard most of my life that there was a publication y'all may be familiar with called Collier's National Weekly. It's no longer in print now, but it was back in the early 1900s. It was December 6th edition, 1924, said that Colonel Sam Tate, he had a net worth in 1924 dollars of $165 billion. In 1924. Okay. So, you know, he was arguably the richest man in the world. And, you know, everybody talks about the Carnegies and this. And shoot. Yeah. He was rich, but not $165 billion.
Wow.
So I was like, I want to find this edition. I want to find this article. I've been looking for years and years and years. And so finally, about 3 or 4 years ago, one night I just got on eBay, just did a search, and it showed up that this antique store in San Francisco had this edition. So I emailed them, asked them if the article was in there. They said yes, it was. I said sold. I mean, I paid probably way too much for it, but you know, I mean,
at this point, it's priceless, Bill.
Exactly. So they sent it to me, and sure enough, there it was. So I've got the actual magazine from 1924, 99 years old. And it says in there, it's called the King. He's the King of Hearts in Georgia. Talking about Colonel Sam Tate, and it lists in there. It says experts estimate his net worth to be $165 billion. That's something around $2.7 trillion today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I can't even wrap my mind around that now. I'm sure back then, people like you. Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, that land lottery just kept on giving.
Yep. Of course, now again, that wasn't all liquid. Most of that was in mineral rights and what have you. But
of course,
it's still just you know, that's mind-boggling.
It is. That's just the numbers you just can't compute in your mind.
Yeah, and you know, guys, we were talking about this before we came on the show, just about the mineral deposits and stuff there in North Georgia. So when you go to check out Pickens and everything, definitely go check out Dahlonega and their gold museum that they have there. There's a lot of great little museums just in that area that, you know, you could spend a whole weekend just learning about your North Georgia history and your Southern history. You know, it's a great place to visit.
That's
absolutely
right. I even got that copy of that article in my book. So just so to prove, because a lot of people said, no, there's no way he was that rich. And I'm like, well, there it is. So it's in the book.
Wow. Great.
But
well, like I said, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's like I said, there's several great museums throughout North Georgia. Over in Cartersville, Georgia, we were talking about it earlier. There's the Tellus Museum, which is have the
science,
different minerals, the Science Museum, dinosaurs, prehistoric. It's a great museum over there.
Well, you know, from our jail in the summer, we are starting a motorcycle tour as well. So we may have to include you as a stop on this motorcycle tour,
Please,
because I think that would just be. I'm excited to see your building.
please,
As soon as we can get down there, we're going.
please do. You're welcome anytime.
Well, thank you, Bill. And again, thank you so much for being on with us tonight. You are just a wealth of knowledge. And like I said, you have now set the bar for all of our other guests in this
Oh,
series, because it's just been very informative.
well, I
One
appreciate
one last question. If people do want to come by for daytime tours and stuff,
it.
is the best way to, because you said it's based on like a volunteer basis, correct?
Mhm.
Is the best way to
Yes,
find
yes.
out on Facebook? Do you make your announcements there?
A lot of times we do, but if you want to do a private tour, if you could just message us through Facebook, and I'm sure we can accommodate.
Okay.
We'll get somebody to work with you. We'll find somebody. Uh, do our very best to make sure that we accommodate your request.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Well, stick around, Bill, because we're just going to wrap up a little bit of business here and close out the show, and we'll pop on here and tell you goodbye here in a few minutes. But
Okay, very
thank
good.
you for
Thank
taking
you,
the
Bill.
time to come on with us
No,
tonight.
thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Talk about
Wow.
setting the bar.
I know. He really has. He really has. So just great information, a beautiful building, and goodness, as he said, the historic preservation piece of it, it looks like they have just gone above and beyond to preserve that building, and it's beautiful.
Absolutely. And just the time and the money that goes into that, it's
Mhm.
well worth, the trip and the time to do that. And
Mm.
so we do really thank him for coming on tonight. And thank you all so much over in the chat room for your wonderful questions. Thank you, Scott from Scotland, for staying up late and joining us tonight. That's fascinating about your jail history over there, and the fact that you don't have the buildings like we do. And that's what I'm really looking forward to with this series, because there's the similarities, but there's also the great differences of some of these that we're going to be speaking with.
And again, just great information on what they're doing to entice people to come to the area, right? I love the Jeep idea, and that's something that we can maybe talk to our officials here about. The art sidewalk show, I think that's an amazing thing as well. So definitely things that we can incorporate, that other jails that are watching, or other historic locations that are watching, could really kind of incorporate that into their fundraising system.
Absolutely. Taking it from a different perspective, not just, oh, I'm going to this historical location, but
Mhm.
combining this stuff, combining the Jeeps, combining the motorcycles, combining a different element. That's just, it's a beautiful thing. And I'm really excited about just the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. So again, as Miranda said, thank you guys so much for joining. Please be watching, because we will be making some announcements here soon about our February lineup, some of the things we've got going on here at the jail, and some other things that we've got going on. So just please keep up with us on that. Next week, we have another very interesting guest from another historic jail. So tune into that, because we'll be talking to them also, getting some of their insight and feedback and learning about their history. But as Miranda said, thank you so much for being with us tonight and asking all of your questions. And we highly encourage you to go buy Bill's book on Amazon. The links are in the description.
Yes, and I know Cindy had asked how much his book is. I think there's the different prices, whether it's the Kindle version or the or the handheld version. So, but all of that there is on Instagram, or excuse me, on Amazon.
Amazon.
I don't know where that came from. I think I was looking and saw
Focus,
Instagram. And again, we've got the links to everything in the show notes throughout the comments here. So please go show that location some love, like, subscribe, and follow to all of their pages. It really does mean a lot whenever it comes to the preservation and restoration of these locations. And like I said, I was just making sure that I didn't miss any comments here. And as Chris said, carrying on with the new series, or with our new series, we'll be heading down to Florida next week.
That's right.
So, and they will be live in their jail location. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You
It'll be a
know,
good show next week. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I say we go ahead and wrap this up.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. We had a great evening, and we hope you all have a blessed night. Thank you.